Good day, YouTube, and welcome to another episode of the Albino Rhino beer review. I've been asked many times in the past to do a top 10 beer list. I don't think a top 10 beer list is very fair. Geography makes it so that people can't get a lot of the things I can get. I can't get a lot of things other people can get. It's a weird thing. I mean, if you really want me to do a top 10 beer list, I can compile one. I just, my taste changed so often, and even at 1,600 beers, I still have not had enough to go out and fully say this is my top 10 bang beers. But what this video is going to be, and what I hope other beer tubers and some of my viewers do, this is going to be my top 10 most influential beers on my life, and I'm going to tell you why for each of them. So what I'd like you guys to do, I'm hoping somebody does it, either a top 10 or even a top 5. Record yourself telling what your top 10 or top 5 most influential beers on your life are and why. So starting with me, number 10, Old Vienna. Old Vienna was my very first beer. I drank my first Old Vienna when I was 8 years old. It was still a Carling O'Keefe product. I remember it tasting horrible. I remember saying it was good because I was there with my cousin, who was the one that snuck the beer to me, and it really started my beer drinking. Number 9 would probably be Labatt Blue. Why Labatt Blue? Labatt Blue was the first beer I ever got drunk on. Labatt Blue is the beer that also turned me off of beer for a good long time. I drank Labatt because all my other friends drank beer, and every time I drank it, I said, this is disgusting, why are we drinking this? And they said, because it's a manly drink, and that's when I started drinking coolers. And yeah, I know, Smirnoff Ice, ooh, I'm not a man, but my Smirnoff Ice was 7% alcohol and didn't taste bad. Your Labatt Blue was 5% alcohol and tasted like shit. Anyway, number 8, Old English. Old English. Why would Old English be another one of my most influential beers? It was my Brew Crew beer. That malt liquor is what I would bring to Brew Crew all the time. Brew Crew was me and my buddies hanging out on a leather couch in the woods, drinking. It also was the alcohol that taught me how much alcohol hurts when you get it in your eye. We were running away from a dog one night that a dog chased us through our Brew Crew area, and I was running with my bottle open, and I got it in my eye, and I bombed the bottle out of pure anger of it hurting me. And I still get harassed about bombing that bottle to this day. Number 7, Steam Whistle Pilsner. Steam Whistle Pilsner was one of my first craft beers. I'll say first craft beer of the modern age, because I had a few that were considered craft back in the late 80s, early 90s, but Steam Whistle was my first modern age craft beer, and I remember hating it. It was in that green bottle. Bars usually had it sitting on their shelf forever. Nobody really knew what a green bottle did to hops. Nobody really cared either. They just had this cool shaped retro bottle full of a beer in this green bottle, and it was great. We can sell it for more. So that was my first venture into craft beer in the modern day, and it didn't go very well for me. I don't mind it now, but I need it fresh. I will not buy it in bottles. I'll only buy it in cans, and I need it still to be fresh. Number 6, Upper Canada Dark. Upper Canada Dark was the first beer I drank after starting beer that actually had a different flavor. I remember being excited about that. Wow, something different. Who could expect something different? So Upper Canada Dark was a great beer for me because of that. Number 5, the Brick Brewing Company's Red Cap Ale in the stubby form. That was the beer I really started drinking beer again to. Again, it tasted the same as all other beer, but it was super cheap and it was in a cool bottle. That was back in the days of the $24 2-4, and yeah, that's why I bought it. It was cheap and it was different. It was in a different bottle. It was a different scene. Maybe it was kind of hipsterish back then, before hipsters really were big, but yeah, it was. I didn't want to drink the same thing as everybody else, and even though most of the beers at the time tasted the same, that was different. Um, Number 4 most influential, and yeah, I know a lot of these are macros or craft that, well, macros that used to be craft, such as Upper Canada. But this is the buildup of beer, right? Most people start with that stuff. Number 4, I want to put this higher up on the list, but this list isn't going in chronological order, so it doesn't matter. Number 4 would be Innocent Gun. Innocent Gun was the first beer I ever had that was oak aged. It opened my eyes to what oak could do to beer. It really started a trend here in North America. It opened my eyes to what beer could actually taste like. It opened my eyes to how much temperature mattered, because as you let the Innocent Gun warm up, more and more great flavors came out. It was the beer that started me on my mission to try everything and anything. I do believe. Again, first it got me on my oak aged love. 3, Guinness. Why Guinness? Guinness was my first beer that was fully different. It was different than everything. It wasn't a lager. It wasn't Upper Canada Dark Lager. It wasn't Molson Canadian Lager. It wasn't Coors Light Lager. It wasn't Bud Lager. It wasn't a lager. It was a stout. Not just any stout, a nitro stout. It was a nitrogen infused stout, and it was horrendous the first time I drank it. I remember thinking I bit my lip and was drinking my own blood. Taste started growing on you though, didn't it? And taste grows on most people. And the more and more I drank it, the more and more I liked it, and the more and more I drank it, the more and more I really wanted to try things. It started me off on my quest too, but not as much as the Innocent Gun. It started me going to the LCBO every once in a while and buying the different lagers they had, because back then really the LCBO sold lagers and nothing really more. But it started that off for me. It started me going off and getting things like Tuborg and Holsten and Fax and all that other stuff. Number 2? Number 2 would probably be Penil Barriqua. My very first sour ale. It was a sour from Italy. It really got me into the sours though, since it was one of those beers that again was just so different than everything else I had ever had. I drank it, and I remember going, "What the hell is this?" And then going, "This stuff's amazing." It got me into loving gouzas. It got me into loving lambics. It got me into loving cuvées. It got me into loving all the sour beers. I really, personally, and I've talked about this to other beer reviewers, I personally think sour should be left over in Europe. Specifically, I really think they should be left to the Belgians and the Bavarians, because there's just flora there that seems to make that beer so much better. You can get good sours here, but they just never seem to stack up to that. But alas, whatever. And the number one most influential beer in my life, in all honesty, it would have been the very first beer I homebrewed. Number 1 most influential beer in my life, and this one I will say is the number 1, period. I remember doing it. My wife bought me a recent beer kit. That's what we've been doing my homebrews on lately. But that kit's fairly new. I got that in 2011. I've loved it. But my first beer I brewed was probably back in 2007. It was a horrible lager, and I just threw random things in it to try and change the taste, but that opened me up to wanting to brew all the time. It opened me up to wanting to learn more and more about the science of beer. It opened me up to being very curious about the making of beer, very curious about the different styles of beer, and very curious about the different adjuncts that would go into beer. So there's my top 10 list. Again, do a top 5 or a top 10, I don't care, but I want to see a video of it, please. Somebody do it. It's easy. You just explain your path in beer, either a top 5 most influential or top 10 most influential. Special mention, if I wasn't going to use my homebrewed beers, all the different things I've had in the last few years. I mean, truthfully, it's been a great time, and it's been a great experience, and I thank you guys for joining us on this experience. Anyway, I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna go. I gotta go do my cooking video. Bye.